Are you a retired Fortnite pro that's still using the Air 58? Are you looking for a mouse that doesn't creak? Do you simply want a good budget mouse? If not, then you have to watch this video, because this mouse is...
Hey, yo, the pizza here. Hey, nigga! Ah!
Flip mit das Lied, will Kodein, liebe den Cox. Schuhe sind clean, gib mir den Beat, gib mir den Walk. Wow, 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 gib mir kein Blick auf ne Haus. Digga, ich bin immer broke, Digga, ich bin immer broke.
First of all, I want to mention that I wasted my own money on this mouse, and all my opinions are my own, as they are with all of my videos and recommendations. Also, currently 11% of you guys watching still aren't subscribed, so I'd appreciate it a fuck ton if you would. Starting with the boring stuff, the M3 spots a 3395 sensor. This is the 1K version, but there's also a 4K one with some questionable design choices. It comes in some really cheap packaging that's super minimalistic. Inside the box you'll find a USB-A to USB-C cable with a dongle, some extra normal and dots gates, and the mouse itself with the receiver inside of it. Normally I'd start with talking about the shape, since that's the most important thing when looking for a new mouse. But since the QC issues on my copy are pretty horrible, I'll talk about that first. Right out the box, the mouse started creaking like I was picking up a G-Wolves mouse from 2018. The entire right side of the mouse creaks as soon as you start touching it on my copy, and it just makes this thing feel like the Chinese mouse it actually is. The right mouse button also has a ton of switch grinding on my copy, and it just feels... These issues didn't ruin the mouse completely for me in game, but I definitely wouldn't recommend anyone buying this specific version of the M3 yet. Since this is the only version of it that I own, I can't actually tell you if the newer ones are any better, so you'll have to check out some other reviews in order to find out if those are any good. Starting with the shape, as you can see on screen, this thing is as close to the Final Mouse Air 58 as it gets. I personally bought this mouse in order to find out which size of the upcoming Final Mouse Ultralight X that I was going to get. So this has definitely convinced me that I'm not getting the Tiger. For those who haven't owned an Air 58, think of this as a flatter, wider and also longer G Pro X Superlight. I think that the overall shape is pretty safe and can easily support most grip styles. However, the overall size of this thing is freaking massive. Besides the Vaxi XEW, this is probably the largest mouse I've ever tried. My hands are 19 by 10, and with my aggressive claw grip, I could not handle this thing personally. I think that in terms of shape and size, there are definitely more attractive budget options out there, and I personally wouldn't recommend this for somebody that doesn't know which mouse to get. Unless your hands are freaking huge, then this might be the perfect shape for you. The overall size and shape does actually remind me of the XEW somewhat, but that mouse is definitely much better designed, more ergonomic, and also has a much lower button height, as you can see on screen. The coding on the M3 is actually pretty decent, and I personally didn't have any issues with it in-game. It does remind me somewhat of the new Wired Feather V3 coding, but it's definitely not as grippy and rubbery as that one, because that one is simply insane. But yeah, neither with dry nor with warm hands have I had any issues gripping this thing. The main buttons on this mouse are yet again the Kale GM 8.0s, and I personally didn't have an issue with their implementation. I'm really not too picky when it comes to mouse 1 and mouse 2, but I could see some people having an issue with the amount of both pre and post travel that they have. The post travel really is quite a lot, but as I've already said, I didn't have any issues with that personally. The side buttons are really far forward, and it's probably the biggest design flaw about the entire thing. Like, look how far forward they are compared to the sensor. The side buttons themselves are quite heavy to press, and I don't think I have to mention how annoying they are to use in-game with that placement. The scroll wheel is actually pretty decent. It doesn't sound cheap, but very quiet and also slightly tactile. Mouse 3 is also pretty easy to press, and I wish more mice were like that. The stock skates on the M3 are these slightly above average solid white PTFE skates, but they did scratch somewhat on most of my pads. I could probably have played with the stock skates just fine, but since I'm currently testing out all kinds of dot skates for a future video, I installed these X-Ray Pad Jade dots, which are absolutely amazing so far. The battery life is probably the best thing about this whole mouse. I've been using it the entire day for almost a week now, and it's still at 75%. If I had to guess, I'd say this thing will probably last you about 3 weeks. Darmoshark says that it should last you around 83 hours, and I think that sounds just about right. Yet again, as with most other Chinese mice, the software is a must download. because the default settings on this thing are ridiculous. By default, the mouse is set to 500Hz polling rate, sensor ripple is turned on, and the esports mode is turned off as well. If you, for whatever reason, actually get this mouse, I'd highly recommend instantly downloading the software and setting the polling rate to 1000Hz, turning off whatever sensor ripple is, and setting esports mode to on. I'd also recommend setting the debounce time to 2 milliseconds, since that is what I've been using it with, and I haven't had any double clicks with it so far. Besides those settings, there's also the same old macro functionality as with any other Chinese mouse, so go ahead and write your Apex movement scripts there. The 1K version of this mouse currently goes for about 43 euros on both Max Gaming and AliExpress. With the QC issues that both me and many other reviewers are having, I wouldn't say that it's worth that price tag. There's also the 4K version, which costs about 65 euros on AliExpress and some ridiculous amount on Max Gaming. But since I don't know what the QC is like on that version, I can't tell you if that one's actually worth it or not. I do, however, think that you shouldn't even think about getting any of these versions unless you got some seriously big hands. When it comes to my personal opinion about this mouse, I really can't see myself putting this thing back on my desk again. At first, when playing heroes like McCree in Overwatch, where you simply play left-click simulator, I thought it was going to be absolutely fine and the shape wasn't an issue for me yet. However, as soon as I tried heroes where I had to use both left and right click at the same time, I felt like I was holding a fucking boulder in my hand. Of course, there's also the QC issues, and those only added fuel to the fire. Now, to the conclusion, who is this mouse for? If you're a huge fan of BDSM, I think that this is the perfect tool to add to your collection. But jokes aside, I wouldn't consider getting this thing unless you want a massive mouse and are on a really tight budget. I think that people with hands larger than 20 by 11 could enjoy this shape, but the percentage of you guys that would prefer something this big is probably in the single digits. As always, if you're for some reason still interested in getting this mouse, I will leave some links down in the description for you to go ahead and buy it. If you enjoyed the video, remember to like and subscribe. Peace out.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.